you went under the wheels.
Affected.
Welcome to Under the Wheels. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
And today we're going back to the Netflix filmography canon recent releases and watching David Fincher's new semi-biography, Mank?
Biographical drama. If
Biographical.
you want to go off the Netflix first sentence. Or sorry, the Wikipedia first sentence.
Which is, you know, the official, it's the best place to get all of your references. And also, if you're listening to this and you haven't given like a couple of bucks to Wikipedia just to keep the site running, you know, like, do your due diligence, give them some money. It doesn't really support us at all, but it supports me putting the links in on the bottom. So, you know, considering a lot of people get information from Wikipedia, either for good or ill, I think it's worth it if you're a listener of us to, you know, help them out a little. All right.
Where else are you going to find a massive online encyclopedia where every piece of information is indexed and referenced? And you can, you know, they have links to all the sources. Cite your sources, you sons of bitches.
Although don't cite Wikipedia as your source because that's... no.
Only amateurs do that.
Amateurs do that, yes.
You find the piece of information from Wikipedia, you click the citation on that piece of information,
and you cite that
source. Yeah. But it's like, you know,
you should probably read it first, but yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. We're living in an age of like heightened stupidity, I guess, online. And I think the single most frustrating thing about it is, like, you know, people throw back and forth outlandish claims at a shocking rate, but they don't cite their sources. I'd like to think of myself as being pretty open-minded. If someone says something just batshit crazy, I'll buy it. Just cite your fucking sources, man.
I feel like listening to some pundits, like the first thing that comes to my mind is always citation needed. You know, like we need a little bracket with a little number that we can click and double check in this day and age.
Yeah.
But anyway, what have you been up to lately? What have you been watching?
Well, I've been playing a lot of Dark Souls 3 and therefore bashing my head against a wall. But in between that, I watched the SpongeBob SquarePants movie.
The new one? Sponge on the Run? Oh.
No, the original one from like 2005.
Oh.
I want to see Sponge on the Run, but...
I do too.
I haven't had the opportunity yet. Yeah, just the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, which is still very funny and very entertaining. It holds up quite well.
The resident SpongeBob SquarePants expert, Gabe.
Pretty much.
Added to your signature for your credentials, like, yeah, you know, I made a couple of movies. I think very critically about film. Apocalypse Now is my jam. Oh, and SpongeBob SquarePants.
Hell yeah.
The list.
So yeah, it was a great movie when I saw it. It's still a funny movie. I still get a huge kick out of it. So it's kind of like comfort food at this point. Like, I think everyone has like movies that they can just watch over and over again as like light entertainment. They're just kind of an easy distraction. And for me, SpongeBob SquarePants, the movie, definitely fits that bill. And then I also watched Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai, and Andrei Tarkovsky's Andrei Rublev, both of which I wrote about for the website.
I haven't had a chance to read either of those. I'm really excited about reading the Ghost Dog one. It's been years since I've seen it, and since I was going to talk to you, I figured I'd talk to you about it anyway before reading your review on it. So, but yeah, I saw that both of those were on the website, and like I said, I'm excited to read it because I love reading your reviews on it, and also your in memoriams or your in passings as well. So.
Which is weird that that's now a genre of article, because just people are dying right and left.
Well, I mean, like back in what 2017 when Carrie Fisher died, I feel like that was like a big year for people's deaths, and then like this year too. Although a lot of them haven't been like COVID related, there's still just been like a ton of people.
No, a lot
who
of them
are
are
like,
just because they're old.
yeah, like I mean, Sean Connery was just old. You know, Hugh Key Burns was like, it's amazing that he was able to do one more Mad Max movie. You know. So.
Yeah, but yeah. So Ghost Dog, Shiny and Chrome, great movie. Same with Andrei Rublev, also a Shiny and Chrome, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah.
It's funny. It's like it's almost like back in the day. Speaking on Ghost Dog, back in the day when Forrest Whitaker was actually like a good actor.
When he could keep both eyes open.
Oh, I felt bad because my introduction to Forrest Whitaker was the Twilight Zone show, and like hosted by Forrest Whitaker. I'm like, who the fuck is Forrest Whitaker? But he's like, when you go into the Twilight Zone, and I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, he apparently got corrective surgery to correct it because it was the thing with his eye, because it was bugging him, but didn't seem to stick.
I was trying to think what my introduction to Forrest Whitaker was. I remember he used to play like basically a comedic version of himself as a government agent in American Dad.
You mean it wasn't when he was playing an FBI officer in Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme? How much Jim Jarmusch are you familiar with?
Not a whole lot. I mean, I've seen like Dead Man and Ghost Dog, and then I saw like bits and pieces of The Limits of Control on TV, which, you know, was eye-catching to say the least, but I had no idea what the fuck was going on. Other than that, not a whole lot of familiarity with Jim Jarmusch. I've seen enough to kind of get a vague idea of what he's about. Like, his movies, you know, they're pretty dry. Like, they're very ironic. They tend to have, like, this European, for lack of a better word, flavor to them.
Yeah.
But they're always, like, they always take place in America, and they're about very American things. So it's like, I think he even said he considers his movies to be, like, kind of a foreigner's view of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's from, like, Ohio or something. I mean, Ohio is basically a foreign country, so...
Apparently that's where, like, a lot of weathermen and weatherwomen go to, like, work on their accents. Some Ohioan told me that one day, and they're like, oh, yeah, you know, in Ohio, that's where all the people go to get a neutral American accent. I was like, really? Ohio? That's the place? We're like,
my understanding was like the generic American accent is something kind of like what you and I talk in.
Right, that's what I would have thought too. Not like,
and
yeah,
because it's like you can go anywhere in America and find people who sound like you and me, and then there's also regional accents.
Well, I mean, even I would say that my voice kind of tends a little bit towards either whiny or like surfer lingo, and I use the word like too much. But I guess everyone kind of does, except for maybe you. But yeah, like, God damn it! Anyway, yes, I don't think Ohio is the spot you go to for the neutral American accent. But apparently, that's like the hotbed training ground for weather people and news anchors. I don't know how much of that's true though.
The hell.
I was actually curious because the one thing about Ghost Dog that that always stuck with me, and I'm looking at your review of it right now, the ice cream salesman where Ghost Dog and the salesman are like talking, and they're literally saying the exact same thing, just
but they can't understand each other,
different languages, and they don't understand each other. And like I felt like that was one of those things that I liked it. I thought it was funny and charming. But I could easily see people looking at that and being like, "Oh, this is dumb, cheap comedy." Where did you fall on the?
I loved it. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was very charming.
Yeah, Yeah, you say he steals the scenes, which I would agree with. Isaac de Bankel. I probably butchered that poor guy's name.
Yeah, I wouldn't even attempt to pronounce his name. I mean, he's from the Ivory Coast, so he's got like a name that is a hybrid of French and African, and therefore impossible for an American to pronounce. It's like Isaac de Bancolé or something like that, but
that sounds better. Yeah.
But yeah, he's great, and I think partly because he's so like. He's just so jocular and like enthusiastic about ice cream that he tends to steal every scene he shows up in. Like, I love how he's always reading about, like, he's always announcing into his like PA system about like, oh, like new study shows that ice cream is super healthy because it's got all this calcium and stuff. And then at the very end of the movie, he's like, hey, so it turns out ice cream's not good for you.
I have to rewatch it. I should have sprung on it when I had a chance. I was like, do I really want the movie? I'm glad you took a chance on it though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so the thing is I I don't really buy movies that I have seen already unless they're like $5 or something. Then it's like, it's $5, fuck it. Typically, if I'm going to buy a movie, it's because I haven't seen it before, but I am very interested in seeing it, and it's basically impossible to find, Like, it's not on any streaming service, and it never will be, and it's not on TV, and it probably never will be. So, like, a lot of the Criterion stuff, especially, like, I buy a fair number of Japanese and Russian movies from Criterion whenever they're on their like half off sale. That shit I've never seen before, but sounds interesting, and will never show up anywhere where I can see it, so I just have to buy it on disc.
That's interesting, like, because most people buy movies that they like so that they can watch them again, and so then they have this huge library of movies, and they're like, oh, I love all of them, I can't decide which one to watch. So it's interesting, like, to see the other side, because I think you're probably the only person I know who's just like, well, I can't get it any other way I can't get it any other legal way except to buy it, and then I'll just drop $20 on something that I hope is good.
Yes.
Again, you got a pretty good shot with Criterion. Like, generally, if you think you're interested in it and it's a Criterion movie, then you'll probably enjoy it because of the way that they market all of their movies.
Exactly. And I mean, I've never had any, like, I've never bought a movie from Criterion that I hated or that I really didn't like. I have been disappointed a few times. Like, movies were just kind of underwhelming. Like, Vengeance Is Mine is a good example of a movie that's good, but it wasn't what I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never got like a dud from them. And like also I'll buy movies where like maybe the cost to rent on Amazon is like $2 cheaper than buying it on Blu-ray, so I'll just buy it on Blu-ray. Or like a David Lynch movie because no one wants to put, for whatever reason, even though it's amazing, no one wants to put Wild at Heart on their streaming service. So I just had to buy it.
I wonder if it's a rights
I'm so
issue.
glad I did. So worth it.
Just burn every copy of Natural Born Killers and just replace the disc with Wild at Heart. It's like, this looks like a bootleg. What the heck? That doesn't look like Woody Harrelson. But then by the time they're done, they're like, oh, that was pretty good. I didn't see Robert Downey Jr. in there, but yeah, it's fine.
I mean, I feel like if you're expecting Woody Harrelson and you get Nicolas Cage, you're going to be pretty excited.
Yeah, that's true.
Any rational person would be pretty excited. I mean, I like Woody Harrelson, don't get me wrong, but who doesn't love Nicolas Cage?
Oh, man. So, Andrei Rublev, is that also a Shiny and Chrome?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Just quick summary, I guess, on it is it's a biographical drama similar to Mank, except that it's nothing like Mank because it's a Tarkovsky movie. And Tarkovsky has this reputation of being kind of inaccessible because, well, one, his movies are in Russian, so if you're one of those rubes who doesn't like reading the subtitles, you're basically just never going to watch anything he's made.
Yeah.
Although what I don't understand is people watch Netflix in English with subtitles on. Because I don't know why. Maybe they live in noisy houses. Like, I see so many people watch Netflix in English with closed captioning, but they won't watch a foreign movie because they don't like reading subtitles. And I'm like, this is the dumbest shit I have ever seen. Because I guarantee you, Andrei Rublev is 10 times better than whatever garbage you're watching in English with closed captioning right now. But anyway, his movies tend to be very, very long, like 3 hours or more. They tend to be very slow, and, we're living in a post-Vine era of entertainment where, the average attention span of a person is like 6 seconds, which is why Hollywood movie editing is such a shit show now. So it can be a little hard to stomach some of his stuff. That said, Andrei Rublev, it is 3 hours. It is in Russian. It is in black and white. But it is pretty fast-paced. And it is got a lot of like big set pieces and cool moments and stuff. So I feel like it's probably one of his more accessible movies to like however casual an audience you can get for Andrei Tarkovsky, I guess. Like, it's a good entry point. Like, if you showed someone Stalker, which has fewer shots than there are minutes in the movie...
Oh, that's the movie.
That's
okay.
the movie. That may be a bridge too far for some folks. But, Andrei Rublev, it's a little slow to start, but I would say, like, it's split up into chapters. So there's a prologue and epilogue, and then 8 chapters that comprise the main chunk of the movie. The first chapter and a half are a little slow, but after that, it keeps a pretty tidy pace. There's like big battles, there's a lot of cool set pieces, there's plenty of drama, there's plenty of like, action and intrigue and betrayal and just, stuff happening. So it keeps a pretty good pace. And also manages to mix in like Tarkovsky's signature, like poetic, wistful sort of philosophizing about life and death and the nature of the universe and so on and so forth. But it's also like crazy that it was his second movie, considering it's like pretty much a masterpiece. It's this 3-hour-long, epic, big-budget masterpiece, and it's the second movie he ever did. But it's really good, and it has a lot of interesting things to say. So I would definitely recommend it to anyone, but especially people who like movies and who will be open-minded enough to watch something that's not in English or that is 3 hours or that is not paced like a Vine video.
So would I have been better off getting Andrei Rublev or Stalker? Because I have Stalker. I got it on your recommendation, but I haven't carved out the time to watch it yet. What should I have gotten? Would I have been better served by getting Andrei Rublev, in which case I need to get another Tarkovsky movie when it goes on sale?
You're asking the wrong person, because I'm going to tell you to get like all of them Tarkovsky movie, but
where is he on your...
Except The Mirror.
I was going to say, where is he on your favorite directors Mount Rushmore place?
I don't know.
Gabe Moore.
He's one of those guys who's like... His movies are very much not the type of movie that I typically enjoy, because like I get bored really easily. So it's like, just get to it or forget it. Like, I was listening back on the Blind Manor episode, and I complained so much about how like boring and gratuitous everything is in that show. And in terms of length, Tarkovsky's movies can be pretty gratuitous. That said, I really like every one I've seen. Except I've seen bits of Mirror, and it's borderline incomprehensible, so I may have to like sit down and have a very focused viewing of it. But
Yeah, I don't think his movies are something that you can just kind of like, see a little bit here, see a little bit there. It's like, all right, got to be in my like completely soundproof chamber. Put on the movie.
As far as Rublev versus Stalker, I would say Andrei Rublev is a much more conventional movie. It's a much more accessible movie, and like I said, it keeps a much tidier pace. Like it'll keep you entertained throughout the 3 hours, the 3 hour runtime. Stalker, I like a little bit more because I think it's the style and the themes appeal to me more personally, and it's one of those movies that like I still think about a lot to this day, even though I saw it like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Just because I don't know, there's some stuff in it that is very interesting and thought provoking. So I will like just be sitting around. I'm like, oh yeah, Stalker, what an interesting movie.
Okay.
So
all right.
It's a pick'em.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. I knew that it would be one of those cases of like they're both good, so it doesn't like as long as you have at least one of them, you're fine. But I was just wondering on a personal level, like, do you regret recommending that now that you've seen Andrei Rublev? But
no, I mean,
it sounds like the answer is no. Yeah.
No, I think both should be required viewing for film aficionados, I guess, but because they're both, like I said, they're both great movies. They're both landmarks of filmmaking, just in general, but for pretty different reasons.
Okay.
So, what have you been watching lately?
We're gonna stay with the with a biopic theme here. I've been watching The Crown. I caught up on the 4th season of 10 episodes.
Barf.
I had a feeling you'd say that. I mean, it's pretty much exactly what you'd think of prestige television. It's like it's overproduced, one head writer writing every single episode. You know.
Well, that's not so bad.
Actors well, okay, but like. So, did you see The Queen?
No.
Okay,
so I don't watch British things. I find British media to be irritating.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say tedious. I actually like the different feel of it. Like for BBC, it's like, oh, you can produce a show for BBC, but it has to feel British, which is like a very nebulous term. But I do like the fact that like even with like something like Downton Abbey feels very British, even though it's basically just propaganda to reinstitute the royal class as an important fixture to do nothing but just sit there and like collect money from people.
Well, you know, I don't know if I've made this exact complaint before, but my impression of a lot of British media is like it is some stuffy like upstairs downstairs drama taking place in the household of a wealthy family or some aristocrat or some royal dickbag, and it's like usually adapted from some stuffy book from, you know, the late 1800s or early 1900s, and it's always taking place like in the mid to late 1930s on the eve of World War II and the collapse of the British Empire, and like the entire story is just draped in irony of like, you know, the sun never sets on the British Empire. Little do we know that in 3 years the empire will cease to exist. Stuff, and I feel like it's this bizarro, like, self-flagellating wish fulfillment where British people want to feel like they're important. So it's like, remember when we used to rule the world, but also like whipping themselves at the same time because like we used to rule the world and now we're a laughingstock.
That's so what's funny about that is like two things. One, the 4th season of The Crown is a lot of Margaret Thatcher going around saying, we used to be powerful. And Gillian Anderson as Margaret Thatcher is great. Like, she's very good in the role. But she talks like this, and she wants to bring the British Empire to be the most powerful thing in the world, and like waging wars and shit. So like,
you know, I've never seen footage of Margaret Thatcher, but based on all of the media portrayals of Margaret Thatcher, I think that's just how she talked.
It is. Yeah, they said that Gillian Anderson's performance in The Crown season 4 is like, as far as her speech patterns, the way she holds herself is like super accurate, much more accurate than what's her name, Meryl Streep's performance in The Iron Lady. Yeah.
You know, it's a real shame that no Irish person ever murdered Margaret Thatcher in the 1980s.
I know. I feel like The Crown, because it gets into a lot of like the writer for it, Peter Morgan, he has written a lot of stuff about the Queen, because he wrote The Queen, and he has this play. I've talked a little bit about The Crown, I think, on the show. Mm-hmm. But he has a play where it's just all the prime ministers coming in and they talk to the Queen. And originally it was Helen Mirren, and then it moved to Kristen Scott Thompson. And The Crown is basically taking elements of the play and turning it into a TV series. And it's really weird to see where he stands on a lot of these things, because like the Queen, the movie, kind of takes like a critical point of view of like, did the royal family react appropriately to Diana's death? And that kind of carries over in The Crown.
Probably not, considering they murdered her, so...
Well, that's the thing, is like, so season 4 introduces Diana, and like right off the bat, the show is just like, yeah, Charles never really loved her, but he married her because she charmed the family, which, like, yeah, you can make an argument that that's the case, by all accounts. And then they deal with a lot of bulimia because she was bulimic, and then her kind of stealing the spotlight from Charles, and Charles kind of just giving a lot of hissy fits. And to the actor who plays as Charles's credit, like, it would be very easy to just hate Prince Charles, like, you know, the rest of the world does, appropriately so, I guess. But I think it's appropriate
to hate all members of the royal family.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to. Again, the show itself basically takes the stance of all of the female members of the royal family are great. All of the male members of the royal family are dickbags.
Okay, well, now he just sounds like a simp.
Well, I think part of it is like, in order to do what he wants to do, he has to placate the Queen. So obviously the Queen comes out smelling like, you know, like a fresh bed of roses. And, you know, all the actors they've gotten so far to play the Queen have done a fantastic job. And for the most part, the show is like a showcase of actors acting their pants off, which is like, you know, it can be fun. Like John Lithgow played as Winston Churchill, and he's still the guy I think of as Winston Churchill when I think of Winston Churchill. And, you know, same with Gillian Anderson. Now I'm always going to think of her as Margaret Thatcher with her like crazy hairdo. But I wish it would kind of, I think it tries hard to remain neutral and not reveal what it actually thinks. But in doing so, it just kind of comes off as whatever. Like, it never really takes a stance on Margaret Thatcher. It's like, this is kind of what she did while still changing facts to suit its narrative. And it's like, well, you can't do that. If you're going to change facts to suit your narrative, you need to take a stance of, I feel you need to take a stance of like, what did you think of this woman? Do you think she deserved all of the power she got? Do you think she left England in worse shape? And they even have an episode devoted to a guy who snuck into the palace and had a 10-minute conversation with the Queen. He snuck into the palace twice. And it's like, the show clearly seems to be kind of siding with him, but then they're like not really siding with him at the same time, because he's like, I've been unemployed for like 3 years. I can't get a job because she's cut all public sector, or she's cut all, all government spending on employing people, and unemployment has skyrocketed to an insane rate of like 28%. But interest rates have gone down. And it never comments on the fact that, like, well, maybe the interest rates would have gone down naturally because Labour Party had already started. Anyway,
what?
All that aside, it's just the show is very prestige television. Yeah. It kind of reminded me of Mank, and like kind of some of the shows that, or like some of the stuff in biopics that you hate, where it's like it'll take certain characters and encapsulate their entire life or their entire person in one focused episode on them. Like Princess Margaret always has her own episode where they're like, look at the poor, sister of the Queen who should have been the Queen but didn't get to be the Queen because she was born too late. Doesn't the aristocracy and royalty suck? But they're still there and they still love being royals. And it's
oh, boo-hoo,
Yeah,
you rich people whose entire income comes from people's taxes.
exactly. It's like I think that the show has a hard time trying to figure out like justifying why the royal family exists. And the actor who plays as Prince Charles put it the best. He's like, I didn't want to take the role originally because I couldn't understand why this institution is important, and they kind of convinced me by explaining, oh, they do this and they do this, and I'm like, okay.
No, they don't.
But hey, I like Olivia Colman, so I'll keep watching it. Well, not anymore, because now it's the girl who played as Dolores Umbridge, but I think she'll be great as the queen, so I'm looking forward to season 5 and 6. But yeah.
I feel like England should, like, British politicians should not be allowed to cut welfare benefits for people so long as the royal family exists.
Yeah.
It's like, sorry, if these losers get, like, ungodly amounts of tax money to live their lives and cover up their, like, pedophilia, poor people should get free healthcare. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I would think that Mank would agree with you too, and who knows, maybe even David Fincher would think a little bit about the people who are making a ton of money who tell everyone else to cut their funds while not taking any cuts of their own would also feel similar given
I was
the
going to say,
content
speaking
of
of
the movie.
pedophiles, how about, like, literally everyone in Mank?
So, Gabe, what is Mank about?
Mank is about the life of Herman Mankiewicz, or Minkiewicz, if you pronounce it correctly.
I'll
Because
continue to pronounce
that's
it
actually how you say Mankiewicz. It's
Minkiewicz.
Minkiewicz.
Like Sienkiewicz.
Yeah, like Sienkiewicz. Well, you know, in Poland, which is where I believe Mankiewicz, the name, comes from, W's are V's, and the CZ is pronounced like a CH. So Witz, or Wix, is Vitch. Herman Mankiewicz, who
Yes.
is a, New York playwright turned quick-witted Hollywood screenwriter of the 1930s, and his, life in the Hollywood system and how it all culminates in him writing the screenplay for Citizen Kane, which is generally considered one of the greatest movies ever made. And yeah, it's weird. Mank is a weird movie because it relies, like if you've never seen or heard of Citizen Kane, it's not going to make a lick of sense. If you have, it'll be pretty fun. Also, it helps if you know a lot about, like, William Randolph Hearst, if you've ever, like, gone on vacation to California and visited San Simeon. That also helps a lot and gives you a lot of context. It's also an interesting look at the inside of the kind of industrial studio system of the 1930s and 40s, which I think gets romanticized a lot, but which was actually pretty horrible. And kind of the politics, especially the labor politics of that time, as well as just, the extent to which Citizen Kane was based on real life people and kind of the relationships all these real life people had with each other and with Mankiewicz and with and how that sort of is like a corollary for larger socio-political issues going on in America in that time and now.
Yes.
And it's also, just like my summary, the movie is kind of all over the place. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think everything that you have said, I put a seal of approval on, and I agree with it. So, like, to be clear, I think one of the real reasons we're watching this movie more than anything else is because it's directed by David Fincher. Like, would you say that's
100% the only reason I'm watching it is because I love David Fincher. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, he made a movie, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I feel the same way because I wasn't like hugely excited about this movie. Gary Oldman, in general, he's always solid, but he doesn't excite me anymore. You know, when I see Gary Oldman's in a movie, I'm like, oh, cool, that's another cliche. The rest of the cast isn't filled out with anyone that you would know or be like super excited about. Not
Unless
that they don't
love like British television, because everyone in the frickin' movie is English. Except for
except for
Cowboy.
Amanda Seyfried.
Yeah, except for Amanda Siegfried, and Arliss Howard. Those are like the only Americans in the... Well, and Bill Nye, the science guy.
Yes, I didn't realize it was Bill. I didn't realize that Upton Sinclair was Bill Nye.
Yeah,
Upton Sinclair, who I also don't know about.
I feel like if you took a U.S. history class at any point, you'd have to learn about Upton Sinclair, just because he was a very popular writer. Well, and he wrote The Jungle, which...
He wrote The Jungle, yeah.
Single-handedly, like, changed labor relations in the United States forever.
Yeah, but like between that and the fact that There Will Be Blood was based off of the first section of Oil, I never knew much about him. I didn't realize that he had run for governor of California.
I didn't know that either. That was new to me. But yeah, I mean, it was funny because, like, you know, there's a very, very brief scene where Upton Sinclair is giving a speech, and you just see this one brief shot of him kind of from the back, but a little bit three-quarters, or a little bit from in profile. And I'm like, is that Bill Nye the Science Guy?
Oh my God. Good eye on you. I was just like, oh man, Upton Sinclair. And now I have to look to see if the little bow tie is peeking through. But yeah, like if it weren't David Fincher, there's not a lot that would have excited me about it, because like the movie is shot in black and white, which to me isn't a deal breaker. I do not mind if your movie is in black and white. A lot of the time I actually enjoy black and white movies, but I was worried that they were doing it just for like to show like, look, back in the golden age of Hollywood, isn't everything in black and white, you know? And that kind of annoys me, because like it reminds me of the art. This movie reminded me of a lot of movies, but was significantly better than them. So to kind of put that out there.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the artist, because this does have some similarities to it. I think because I've kind of forgotten about the artist. I saw it once a very long time ago.
Well, you're lucky.
It reminded me of The Lighthouse, in the sense that
Really?
The Lighthouse is filmed in a very specific way to recall movies from an earlier time, specifically like silent horror movies. So this is, you know, it kind of abandons, to an extent, David Fincher's famously clinical approach for a more kind of jumpy, old-timey feel that's in line with like a screwball comedy or a drama from the 1930s and 40s. And, you know, I haven't seen much written by Herman J. Mankiewicz. However, I mean, supposedly he worked in the industrial Hollywood system, which usually meant that like a group of writers was locked in a room until they made a script. And him and a lot of his New York writing buddies had a very similar sensibility where, you know, which is kind of shown through Gary Oldman and to an extent some of the other his writer pals in the movie, of this very like slick, sardonic, ironic sense of humor, very quick-witted, and they stuffed their scripts with that sense of humor. So everyone like talked really fast and like had all these witty quips and comebacks to each other, and even like a serious dramatic movie would have like an undercurrent of humor. Like Citizen Kane. Citizen Kane is a very dramatic movie, but it's also very funny.
Yeah.
So, you know, it even though Mank is a drama for all intents and purposes, it does kind of have this upbeat feel to it, because I think that is probably meant to reflect this Mankiewicz's sensibility and the sensibility of the writers that he worked with at that time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think David Fincher had an interesting quote when he said that like he doesn't necessarily believe in auteur theory. He does realize that all of the major decisions of a movie go through a director. And I'll post the article in the comments because I made sure to get the URL for it. But all of the major decisions go through the director. But the best movies are a synthesis of the director and the writer working together to make the movie. And I think that's one of the reasons he's been so successful, is that even though you kind of know what a David Fincher movie is, he will adapt his style to suit the writer. Because you see that with like the tone of Seven is different than the tone of The Social Network, which is different than the tone of Gone Girl, which is different than the tone of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And they all have a similar feel among them, but they all complement what each writer's strengths are. And I think that's kind of the same. Instead of maybe channeling his father who wrote the script, maybe he's trying to channel more of like what Mankiewicz is writing about. And so I think that kind of comes through, because there's still a lot of Fincherism in there, but it definitely feels different. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
well, I noticed the editing rhythm it's still pretty much all Fincher.
A little bit, yeah. I think with all of his previous movies, at least to my mind, yeah, they work with kind of the feeling that the writers give, but they do end up bending the writer's style to fit Fincher's MO. Whereas I think it feels a little bit with this one that Fincher was trying to broaden his horizons a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, because he very famously puts limits on what he is allowed to do. You know, he has like sort of a personal set of rules for when he makes movies. He's like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Like, no handheld, no this, no this, no this. Mm-hmm. And it feels like he maybe either increased the limits on himself or removed some of the limits for the sake of this movie. I don't know. Or maybe he just applied them in a different way. I'm not sure. But it didn't feel quite like a Fincher movie, except for some of the basic dialogue scenes. Those feel very Fincher-ish because, I don't know, Fincher has a way with like dialogue scenes involving 2 or 3 people that like no one else does it the way he does it. But it is also kind of subtle at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'll go back to, because I had just rewatched The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo probably a month ago, and I noticed that there's a certain urgency. Well, maybe urgency is the wrong word, but like there's a certain haste to the first 15 minutes of that movie where it feels very quickly edited. Like it has very short, very tight cuts to kind of quickly get you into the movie. Yeah. And that kind of pattern is throughout the entire movie. And it's different than, say, like a Hollywood movie back in the day. And it's different than a modern Hollywood movie now, because all of the edits in a Fincher movie are appropriate. And it just feels like a very tightly wound machine. But like even in the opening credits of the movie, it's like the name appears and then the actors appear and then, you know, the cast and crew and everything appear. But everything feels like it's like a split. And I know this is getting into the really nitty gritty, but it helps me to kind of understand how I get into a Fincher movie. That whole opening section, the opening like 7 or 8 minutes, felt like almost everything was maybe like a split second too quickly cut. And then that kind of led me easily into the rest of the movie, which probably still was cut really quickly and really tightly. I know this is kind of weird and abstract, but it helps to make his movies, like with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it felt like I was reading a page turner where you're like almost turning the page before you're done with the last sentence on the page. It helped with that. And then as far as Mank, it just helped me get into the movie faster. Like before I knew it, I was already like invested in the movie, and things that I was kind of nervous about had kind of receded into the distance, because it was like, look, I know I have to do this in the first 5 minutes to get you involved, but after that, you'll see where I'm going. And specifically with the whole, like, I was worried the entire movie was always going to have those scene headers where it was like exterior Minkevich residence day. Like, that appeared like 3 times in the first 3 minutes, and I was like, this is gonna drive me fucking nuts.
You're like, oh, I'm terrified.
Yeah, it was one of those moments I was like, oh, did I just make a terrible mistake? But I think after the first like 5 minutes, when the movie kind of settles into a nice rhythm, it gets a lot better. I'm not as like anxious when I start, because when I started the movie, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why is he being put in a bed? Like, oh, why are we cutting all the way back to when he got in the accident? I don't care yet. I don't care about any of this shit. Give me something to care about. And he does. He ends up doing that, at least for me.
Yeah. Well, the scene headers, I think, when they first show up, it's like, oh no, it's not going to be one of those movies, is it? Like, we're going to make a movie about a screenwriter, so let's start every scene with a fucking screen heading. But... wow, that's so clever. It's not like that has been done before.
Yeah. For all the people who only watch Netflix movies, they're like, oh, this is so cool. I know. Anyway.
But like after the first 5 minutes, they only use it for flashbacks.
Yep.
So
which I think is... Yeah,
okay, thank God. They're using it appropriately, at least.
Yeah.
But, it does... I mean, Fincher's movies always have had fast editing. I think I've mentioned this before, but they're slower movies with a lot of quick cuts.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like, the scenes are long and they play out at a very natural pace, but he cuts from shot to shot really quickly. So it's an interesting kind of hybrid.
Yeah, his editing is fantastic.
Oh, it is. It's always really good. You could say it's almost like the opposite of Tarkovsky, or not the polar opposite of Tarkovsky, but like Tarkovsky, if he has a very long scene, it's typically going to play out in like 1 or 2 takes, maybe. Whereas David Fincher may have a scene that's the exact same length, exact same pace, but, he'll be cutting every second or two. Either back to an earlier angle or to, because he pays super close attention to a lot of those like little slight angle changes to emphasize certain lines of dialogue or certain gestures or things like that. Like one scene that I remember paying really close attention to was Herman Mankiewicz. His brother Joe was also a writer and a pretty successful producer and director, and there's a scene where he comes to visit him and talk about the Citizen Kane script, and also just try and talk him out of slandering William Randolph Hearst. And in that scene, the editing is just very classic Fincher. Like, it's super tight. It has a few establishing angles with the two of them, and then it has an angle for each one, and then it has like an extra close-up angle of Gary Oldman that's only used for 2 lines of dialogue, where he's like either really emphasizing something that goes against whatever his brother is saying, or is basically telling his brother no. So I thought that was neat.
No, there's a lot of that. Like, I do like the way a lot of the scenes are structured and they move. And did you like the black and white cinematography in the movie?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like amazing or anything, but I it looked good. It looked good.
Did it have that soft focus look that most modern movies have, where it's like too slick for you? I'm trying to pin it down, and I think I've got it. I think I know why that it looks the way it looks, but I just wanted to check with you to see if this had it.
A little bit, but I could kind of accept it, because to an extent, the ultra shiny, glitzy look of the movie is pretty similar to, if you watch any music video that David Fincher ever directed that was in black and white, it looks pretty close to Mank. I mean, the only difference is Mank has some old-timey looking filters put on it.
Yeah, yeah. It's got the Ghost of Tsushima Kurosawa filter put on it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, it's in the opening credits, it says shot in high dynamic range by so and so, the cinematographer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Eric Messerschmidt.
Eric Messerschmidt. And it's funny because that credit is made to look like, shot in cinema vision or whatever those old formats were. But like ultra dynamic range or whatever is a digital format. So it's funny because it's like shot in digital, meant to look like an old movie. But if you remove the touches that make it look older, it looks like the music video for Justin Timberlake's Suit and Tie, or I think Vogue, the Madonna one. I think that was in black and white. Any of David Fincher's black and white pop videos that he did in the past kind of look like Mank. So the look of it wasn't like that big a surprise or that big a turnoff, because it's just, this is what I expect from David Fincher.
Yeah, the super slick. Like, for the most part, I didn't have a problem with it. In fact, I thought that there were some things that they did where it added to the almost like old Hollywood over the top feel of it. But there was something I noticed. It's like if you ever use Lightroom, and this is for all my Lightroom users out there, all one of you, you can push the clarity to make things look kind of blurry and softer, and then bump up the sharpness to kind of give like a soft look, but with sharp details in the middle, kind of like I'll call it the Annie Leibovitz look. And there were like a moment or two, like when you do that in a photo and you're against the sky, you'll see this sort of like dark outline around like your people or your principal characters. You'll see like this weird blurry dark like aura around them. And there were like one or two shots in the movie that had that. So I was just thinking and wondering how much post-production worked in there. But there was one shot in particular that like after I saw the shot, I feel like I got what he was going for. And it's when Mank and Amanda Seyfried, that's how I'm going to call it. Someone told me that's how you said it one time, and it just stuck with me because it sounds badass. Seyfried. Mank and Seyfried are walking on the balcony, and it's supposed to be like nighttime, but for some reason, like the sun is still kind of in the air and it's covered by clouds.
In the daytime.
Yeah, it's like shot, but done in sort of this like almost dreamlike day for night, and it was kind of like,
it is very cool.
Yeah, but it reminded me and reinforced the idea of like, we need to keep in mind that all of the flashbacks we're seeing are through Minkiewicz's point of view, and because of that, they're going to take on an almost dreamlike quality for it. So like
that makes sense.
Yeah, so I like, that's when I was like, okay, I get it. This is kind of like how most movies are like, oh, we're telling the true life biopic story, but we're not a documentary. We're going to take creative liberties. This is like, look, we're not even going to pretend that this is like completely accurate. We're telling a point of view of a story, and because we're telling the point of view, we're going to tell it however we want to. And this is one of the ways that we're going to indulge in that. So I liked that aspect of it too, and I for the most part I liked the cinematography.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing to consider, and this is kind of where I was coming at it from, was that old Hollywood movies compared to what you see today, or even like Roger Deakins would probably say that old Hollywood movies are all overlit.
Yeah,
having listened to enough of like his show, he just says everything's overlit, so he'd probably say those are like criminally overlit. But old Hollywood movies are kind of overlit, and they do have that very soft feel to them. And I think that I wasn't even thinking about, I mean, you bring up a very good point that his flashbacks would be sort of dreamlike because they're through his perspective, but I would almost go so far as to say that a lot of movies from that time period have a sort of dreamlike feel. I think, old
Yeah.
Hollywood had that like dream factory mentality where they wanted the movies to feel kind of dreamlike.
Yeah.
But also I think through our our collective memory looking back 80 plus years, I think makes them seem even more dreamlike than they were as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, stuff like that black and white day for night, which conceptually sounds bizarre, but when you see it executed on screen, actually looks really good.
Yeah.
I think that is, to me, that had less to do with the fact that we're in a flashback and more to do with the fact that, like, this is just the, he's just trying to recreate the feeling of those old movies.
Yeah. Like, to that end, I think where a lot of filmmakers kind of mess up, like The Artist, for example, messed up on this. I think there was like The Man Who Wasn't There or whatever by the Coen brothers. Sometimes they try and get a feeling for old Hollywood and say like, oh, we're going to shoot it exactly like they did it back in the day. Like Steven Soderbergh tried it with one of his movies, like The Good German or whatever. And I'm going to actually put the Coen brothers movie outside of that because I haven't seen that, but I've read an article about like Soderbergh tried to shoot it exactly like Michael Curtiz would shoot his movie. And this like Bordwell and Thompson were talking about how like, yeah, but he misses the point because like if the devil is in the details and you're trying to shoot it exactly like one of those movies, then the camera is too close, the editing is too fast, there's too much of a focus on close-ups, there's not enough focus on this. And I thought that was really interesting because I think aside from the fact that Mank was shot in black and white, I think that it was definitely going for like a sensory feel of this is what the movies back in that day felt like, but within my own style. Whereas movies like The Artist are like, I want to make a movie that looks exactly like it and just completely miss the point. So maybe I'm biased, and I probably am, but I did not worry as I was watching the movie that it was trying to be a movie from 1939 to 1943, as so many movies that try and get that style. Even our movie, actually, this movie reminded me a lot of The Watch.
Oh Lord.
But it reminded me of it in the way of like some movies are able to really succeed when trying to do that, like The Lighthouse succeeded in spades with what they were going for. But the way that they went about it was they took their original idea and formatted it into the system, whereas something like The Artist, and I know I'm bashing The Artist, I really don't like The Artist. The Artist tried to be that type of movie and make that type of movie be from that time period. So I think Mank didn't even want, like, aside from being shot in black and white and probably a little bit of like moments here and there where it wanted to be a 1940s movie, I don't think it had the intention of being a 1940s movie. I think it just wanted to kind of give little hints and feeling for texture purposes of the story.
Well, it's a situation where I think there's an uncanny valley of imitation where if you don't try to make it look like a 1940s movie, it won't. If you try too hard to make it look like a 1940s movie, it won't. But there's like a middle ground where it doesn't, like, if you were to put this side by side with a 1940s movie, they wouldn't look the same. However, watching this on its own, it gives you the feeling or like the suggestion of a 1940s movie. And that's more important than any really close fidelity to what it was actually like. Because I think a lot of the time, I mean, art in general, but I think movies in particular work really well on suggesting a feeling more than giving you a concrete detail. And I think at the end of the day, all of the visual and sound techniques used in Mank are not to be a one-to-one imitation or recreation of a movie from that time period, but they're to suggest the idea or the feeling of a movie from that time period. And I think that, in that respect, it succeeds.
I think so too. Speaking of sound, did you notice something weird when you were listening? Were you able to watch it on a TV, or did you have to put on headphones when watching it?
I watched it on TV.
Okay. Did anything sound kind of strange to you in the movie?
Nah, I mean, nothing stuck out. Why?
Nerdy, budding sound person, not me. The movie sounded like it was uncompressed mono.
That's because it was uncompressed mono.
And on top of that, I wonder what kind of post work they did, because like Fincher's all into like very subtle effects that, or like using really big effects very subtly. Like he's very efficient with how he uses his visual effects as well as his sound effects. And there were a lot of scenes where it sounded like they were talking into a microphone that was from like the 1940s, or like there was a microphone that like had a tin can around it, so it sounded like they were like 50 feet away.
Well, so this
which
movie
goes
was
to adding it.
Yeah, I mean the sound in this movie is uncompressed mono, so you're correct on that front.
Yes.
It was also interesting because the music sounded extra uncompressed mono-y. Which, like, I don't think I've ever been as disappointed by a score as I have by this one, because it's like, it is like a period accurate, like jumpy jazz-ish, 1940s movie score basically. Yeah. And it kind of sucks because, Trent Reznor is like basically the king of like electronic industrial music. And he's also an impeccable sound engineer. Like I've seen Nine Inch Nails live, and they had probably the most perfect live sound of any musical act I have ever seen. Because I don't know, I think it's just because Reznor himself was a recording engineer before he was a musician. So everything is just pitched to perfection. And it's just weird that like this, frumpy trumpet music is coming out of my speakers in uncompressed mono. It's like, Trent Reznor made this? What? I mean, that said, it works well for the movie. I just, like, I kind of would rather have, like, this, jazz age movie with this gritty industrial music as the background.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to do that because they want to, like, they're like, oh, this is my only chance to shoot in black and white and do the whole 1940s thing. I better play it conservative with the soundtrack and just go for.
Oh no, man! Accurate. You gotta like Sergio Leone and Ennio Morricone are geniuses.
They got it.
Because
got it.
They put electric guitar in westerns, which is brilliant. Is it period accurate? Fuck no. But that's why it's great. Like, I think there needs to be a little bit more of that. Like period pieces with electronic music as the backing score. Like, that's awesome. More people should do that. Why aren't people doing that?
Man, because no one greenlights period pieces unless they're being released straight to Blu-ray.
Or unless it's like awards bait.
Yeah. And when it's awards bait, if you do that, they're like, oh, this isn't legit. We got to get rid of this. Dust it under the carpet. We can't have our electronic score winning an Academy Award. Although, did they win for... They won for The Social Network, didn't they?
I was going to say, Trent Reznor has won at least one Oscar, if not... And he's been nominated for a few more, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, him and Atticus Ross.
Yeah. What was weird was Atticus Ross did a score with Harry Gregson Williamson for Black Hat, which they completely discarded because Michael Mann doesn't like to use other people's music, but they were still nominated for it. Let's see here. He won the Golden Globe and the Academy for Best Original Score for The Social Network. That's right. The best David Fincher movie. Just kidding. I'm not kidding. Like that is probably my favorite David Fincher movie. But yeah, it was weird to see because I was all excited. I was like, oh, okay. I wonder what they're going to do to like what Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross are going to do to kind of go above and beyond sort of just like the cliche that we would expect as far as the music would go. And I think there were times where they did, but I think for the most part it was probably what they see as the only opportunity they would get to kind of do a kind of a jazzy, like, you know, old school score. So they've already won an Academy Award and been nominated a handful more times. If they want to do that and it works for the movie, then that's fine. But I agree with you. I'm a little disappointed.
Yeah. If anything other than Tenet wins Best Original Score, I will be so pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what else came out this year?
As big of a mess as it is, the music is so good.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you. Like, the best thing about that movie, I think Ludwig Göransson is, like, he's the real deal. He won for Black Panther, which, like, the score for Black Panther is actually pretty awesome. And then he did Tenet, and he does the music for The Mandalorian, and he did another thing that I had seen recently, and it's just like, just his score for Tenet alone is so conceptually brilliant and executed so amazingly that, like, he's going to be around for just like I thought Michael Giacchino was going to be around for a while until he started kind of over recycling his music. I hope that doesn't happen to Ludwig Göransson. But
I hope not. I mean, Ludwig Göransson also has like a music career beyond just soundtracks.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, well, so my introduction to him was actually, through Childish Gambino. So Childish Gambino it's Donald Glover writes he writes all the songs, and he plays the character of Childish Gambino, but all the music is done by Ludwig Göransson.
Okay.
So I think he actually got his.
That's
I
cool.
think he got his start as a hip hop producer or like a pop music producer, and then transitioned over to doing movie stuff. But like the thing is that on all the Gambino songs, I mean the production is really awesome. Impressive. Like it's really, really good, and that's kind of how I first found out about him, because I was listening to all this stuff. I was like, God damn, the music, like the backing Glover's vocals is amazing. Who does this? And then it's like, oh, Ludwig Göransson. I have no idea who that is. And then all of a sudden, he's like, movies start coming out with his name attached. I'm like, oh, good for him.
Yeah, he the score for Creed, like, because the score for Rocky, for all of the Rocky movies, is so iconic, and Rocky's theme is just like, how could you come up with something better than the theme song for Rocky? And it's like, you know what? I probably can't, but I'm going to try and do something that just matches the character and do the best I can. And like, to his credit, the score for the original Creed movie is pretty awesome. So, yeah, Ludwig Göransson, man. Freaking whitest guy you've ever seen making the blackest music you've ever heard. I don't know if I can say that and get away with that, but
we'll find out.
No one pays attention to this. Let's see. So what did you think about the story for Mank? Let's get into this and its relationship to Citizen Kane and how all of that stuff works.
I thought the story was all right. It kind of imitates the Citizen Kane, like, style of, instead of a reporter going around and asking different people questions about Kane, and then they happen to tell you a flashback that fits perfectly into a linear flashback narrative. It's just Gary Oldman remembering things linearly, intercut with him in the present. And I think the larger themes of it, especially because, like, it's basically a movie about labor relations, which, like The Irishman, oddly enough, it weaves those in really well, I thought, even though the story itself isn't the most captivating, especially how it works in, like, the 1934 election. And the one thing that's kind of interesting is that all of the characters in the movie are pretty despicable.
Yeah.
Except for Marion Davis and whoever Lily Collins' character and the German lady. Like, those three are pretty much the only people who don't suck in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also interesting that a lot of the most despicable characters in the movie were actually worse in real life.
In real life.
Like Louis B. Mayer, the mayor in Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, he's portrayed as this, like he's crying all the time because he's this huge sap, but he's also this corrupt businessman who's trying to, like, squeeze free labor out of people and is, like, cutting people's pay, meanwhile, like, pulling in tons of money for himself. The movie never brings up the fact that he was a pedophile and a serial sexual predator who, like, MGM famously had a stable of child stars, like Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney and stuff, for their family movies, many of whom were groomed by Mayer for really gross stuff.
Groomed by Mayer. Ugh.
Yeah. And, I mean, weird. Like, the thing is that was par for the course for a lot of big Hollywood executives at that time. Like, I think people today kind of just buy into, like, oh, there's, like, this pedophile ring in Hollywood. They're all crazy, creepy weirdos. But they always seem to focus on the actors, because those are the people you see on screen. And that always bugged me about the film industry. It's like, the actors have been put forth as sort of the advertisers of the film industry. They're the people you see all the time. They're the people who talk about the movies and on talk shows, and their job is to drum up attention for themselves and for whatever projects they're working on.
Yep.
So they also become the focal point of all these conspiracy theories. But it's like, most of the Hollywood predators and pedophiles and crap are actually the business people in Hollywood. The money people, the producers, like Louis B. Mayer and Gary Cohn and like half the characters in this movie. I'm
thinking of what's his name? Weinstein.
Yeah, Harvey Weinstein. The people you don't see. The people who don't really... The people who have no creative capacity whatsoever, but are somehow involved in this business. Mm-hmm. But also, I think the movie does an interesting job of shining a light on the industrial filmmaking process, which, kind of sucks. Like, it's a bad system, and it produces bad results. And I'm saying that because I don't like a lot of old movies, and I don't like a lot of
put it into context.
Modern studio movies. Because, if you paid attention in U.S. history, you'll know that or world history, you'll know that in the mid-1800s, we had the Second Industrial Revolution, which meant that, which kind of introduced the factory model, which is like, okay, we're going to make,
we're gonna
wrenches.
make cars. Oh, yeah, wrenches, yeah.
We're going to make wrenches. And we're going to have, like, 30 workers on an assembly line. And each worker makes one very specific part of the wrench and then passes on to the next one, and they add to it, and pass it on to the next person, they add to it, and so on. And that way, like, it's this very controlled, repeatable process, which is great for wrenches or cars or, like, very precise mechanical stuff. Mm-hmm. The problem is that people saw it and were like, wow, this process is so efficient. We should apply it to everything. So then you had the industrial education system, which we're still dealing with to this day. Like, all the complaints that I think people have about the education system as it is right now, especially primary and secondary education, is because we're in this industrial education system that is meant to be, like, hyper compartmentalized and hyper efficient, but it actually doesn't work at all, because education doesn't work like that. People applied it to art with filmmaking, and it produced a lot of shitty movies, a lot of shitty generic movies that all look the same, and it also allowed predators like Louis B. Mayer to exploit laborers and sexually exploit everybody, basically.
Yep.
So it's like there's some things that an industrial process does not work well on. And I think Mank does a good job of showing how just kind of weird it was to make a movie at that time. Like I said, the writer's room where it's like 6 writers locked in a room where they develop all these scripts, and then they have to pitch it to some guy, some suit whose only qualification is that he has a lot of money. And they're always pitched
sometimes not even that. It's just...
Oh, yeah, he was put in
big
place
guy
by
likes
someone
you
who has a
best,
lot of
yeah.
money.
Yep.
And, the way they pitch the movies is like, I don't know, it's like someone pitching a business, and it's like, you can't make art like this. Like, what the fuck, man?
I loved the pitch session. I thought that was so funny.
It is funny, but it's also bizarre. It's like, their idea for a movie sounds awful. But it's like, bad systems produce bad results. And, ultimately I care about results. Like, is the movie good or not? No? Well, probably the way they've been cranking these things out doesn't work either. So, I mean, it's interesting to look at that and just the way that, Irving Thalberg and Louis B. Mayer are portrayed really negatively in this movie. I think for good reason.
Yeah.
It takes place during the Depression, so a lot of people are poor and starving. And, I think those elements of the movie are the most interesting to me. Like, Mankiewicz is this unabashed leftist who the only thing he cares more about than, I think, that his political views is himself and his own like self-destructive tendencies. Like he feels really bad that he's this successful Hollywood writer making all this money. Meanwhile, there's people literally dying of starvation, and he's just like living it up. And he only knows how to deal with it by being more self-destructive. And then you have the Sinclair election, where Upton Sinclair is a out-and-out socialist who is running against, the Republican candidate of that time. All of the executives in Hollywood are very conservative, very Republican. Like, they are terrified of the idea of losing their wealth and having to redistribute it to people who are literally dying of starvation. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, they're also, like, firing people, cutting wages, but, they don't take any pay cuts personally. And then you mix in Hearst, who you can whine about George Soros all you want. You want to talk about a real, like, big billionaire who controlled everything, like a evil puppet master. William Randolph Hearst was that guy in the early 1900s. Through his newspaper, his media empire, the media, and his political influence, he could choose who gets elected. He could select cabinet members. He could just shift public opinion right and left as he wished. And the particulars of Citizen Kane and the relationship between Mankiewicz and Welles is less interesting than just the decision between the two of them, very young Orson Welles and a very old and jaded, or not very old, but an older, more jaded Mankiewicz, to, basically go after Hearst and his life and everything that he represents.
Yeah. A good companion. I would recommend, as a good companion movie to this, if you did find this movie interesting, to watch RKO. I said it in our pre-show, but RKO 281, which basically tells this side of the story from Orson Welles' point of view, which is kind of like, it's interesting because like Orson Welles is divisive, but if you end up watching the documentary, also another plug, The Battle Over Citizen Kane, which also covers this material as well, like just the whole everything surrounding how Citizen Kane came into being is really fascinating. It's almost more fascinating than the movie itself because of how much it almost kind of ends up paralleling the movie. Like, there's a lot of parallels between Orson Welles' life and Charles Foster Kane's life, even though it's based off of William Randolph Hearst. But I do find it interesting how, like, a lot of the movie deals with sort of like the double-edged sword, hypocrisy, and people who don't have any like moral standards, like Thalberg. You know, he's like, look, I'll make a lot of money. I know exactly where I stand on all of these issues. I understand that I'm a scumbag and I have no integrity at all, Mank, but at least I know that. Whereas you go around speaking about the integrity. Cut to Thalberg's funeral, and it's a speech about how much integrity Irving Thalberg had.
Yeah,
and it was like,
that was an interesting dynamic as well. Like how who stands by what they believe in versus who caves due to money or pressure or fame.
mm-hmm.
You know, because there's Metcalf, the guy who makes like anti-Sinclair propaganda, even though he supports Sinclair's political views.
Mm-hmm. Those scenes were so good.
Yeah, you can kind of see him coming a mile away.
Yeah, but it was still, although it also made me realize I can't make any more Parkinson's jokes. I felt bad. I felt too guilty.
No more
Michael J. Fox cameraman jokes.
J. Fox.
Yeah. Come up with something else.
But yeah, so like he has these very strong beliefs and gives them up because he wants to be a director, and he sees this as his only chance,
mm-hmm.
and ends up killing himself over it. And yeah, then there's Louis B. Mayer and Irving Thalberg, the two kind of greedy, morally bankrupt producers, are interesting because Louis B. Mayer he acts like some over the top. He acts like the crying lion from the frickin' Wizard of Oz, Like, he's such a bitch in this movie. Like, he's just whiny, and like he's always like crying these big fake crocodile tears about everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I care about people, and he's really just
family.
He's really just a fraud and a criminal. And Irving Thalberg is not a good guy either, but he's like, look, I know I'm not a good guy. I'm in this for myself. I'm in this to make money, and that's it. And it's kind of, how he talks to Mank in that one scene. He tells Mank, look, we're putting together a fund to support the election of the Republican candidate.
I love this.
And you're the only one who hasn't contributed. And that's going to piss off the bosses because, we're all supporting the GOP. And he's like, well, and Mank is like, it's like, wow, I'm kind of surprised you'd be that, like, say something that bold to me. And he's like, well, I was always taught to just be straightforward and direct and tell people what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And, Mank is kind of like, well, I was always taught to use my imagination, ha 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 ha. And it's an interesting contrast of how, Mank has all these values, but he compromises them continuously, mm-hmm. and then sort of hides behind his drinking and his dark humor. And he gets called out by Thalberg, and Thalberg says, like, I know you have all these high-minded ideals, but, like, you betray them endlessly and then hide behind your slick irony. At least, like, I know who I am. I know I'm not a good guy. And I don't care because I have to take care of myself at the end of the day. And I'm not going to apologize for that. And I think that is kind of a microcosm of a lot of the character dynamics in the movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's why it's kind of weird because the big eye-opening moment of the movie is at the very end when, Orson Welles comes over. By the way, the guy who played as Orson Welles, Tom Burke, his Orson Welles impersonation, he doesn't look anything like Orson Welles to me, but his voice was like perfect.
It was so perfect.
He had the cadence down when he changed his words. I was like, oh my God, man, this guy. To me, Vincent D'Onofrio will always be the Orson Welles from Ed Wood, which, even though they got the guy who did the voice of Brain to overdub
Maurice LaMarche.
Yeah, but like as far as looks go, like Vincent D'Onofrio nailed it. By the way, Ed Wood, also a movie that like feels very in line with this. I was thinking a little bit about that. Not as much as some of the other movies that I've seen, or that this reminds me of, that Mank reminds me of. But when Orson Welles comes over and like the big moment is he's like, I want credit. And it's like, this is the big epic moment of like, oh my God, that's what he's been after this whole time. But like in the context of the movie, it's like he's kind of hidden away what his agenda is. You know, he's caused the utter defeat of, you know, he's more or less kind of responsible for the defeat of Upton Sinclair, at least according to the movie. You know, he does nothing to stop various things from happening, you know, and like his big moment is he's never taken responsibility, I guess. And so now he's finally like, no, I truly was burned by can't even remember his name, Willie, and so now I want to tell things from my point of view, and I want to be on top of it. Now, RKO 281 takes a very different perspective of it. It's a lot more antagonistic. It's like John Malkovich bursts in and he's like, Wells, give me credit. I wrote this thing, you know. But in this, it's much more like, oh, I knew I wasn't going to get credit for it, but now I want credit. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic to proceed in the movie, like the way that they structured it. So
yeah, I think so. I mean, it's the thematic arc of the movie is basically that in Mankovich's whole career, he's friends with Hearst, he's friends with Mayer, works for Mayer, and he's friends with Hearst's wife, Marion Davis, and he's actually friends with Hearst through Davis.
Yes.
And you know, he hates Hearst and everything that Hearst stands for. He hates Mayer and everything that Mayer stands for. But because both of them support his lifestyle, and he enjoys going to their dinner parties and drinking fancy liquor, and he enjoys, you know, the perks of being a successful screenwriter in a time where everyone else is suffering from like horrible, crippling poverty. He compromises all his values to, you know, basically be their dancing clown. And him writing the script for Citizen Kane is basically it's like his revenge, but also his way of like making up for everything he didn't do all those years before and all the people that he let down. And I think, you know, it's interesting because probably my favorite moment in the movie, which I think is supposed to be the big climactic event, is, you know, at the dinner party where he gets really drunk and starts just openly ridiculing Hearst and, you know, Louis B. Mayer. And then at the very end, at the very end of this long tirade, he finds out that, you know, his very nice salary that he's been making wasn't paid by the studio for the most part. Hearst was personally paying to keep him on the MGM payroll because Hearst finds him funny. He's like, you know, like even though he is so antagonistic towards Hearst and is constantly criticizing him and making jokes at his expense and all this other stuff, Hearst actually just genuinely thinks he's hilarious and enjoys having him as entertainment. So as a result, his entire lifestyle that he's sold himself out for is directly paid by kind of the embodiment of evil in the movie.
Played by everyone's favorite villain, Charles Dance.
Hell yeah. Or if you're a fan of The Jewel and the Crown, everyone's favorite romantic lead, Charles Dance.
Ooh. Indeed. By the way, in RKO 281, that role is played by James Cromwell. So just kind of so we're lining everything up in interesting ways. Charles Dance, excellent choice for William Randolph Hearst, as well as James Cromwell, who's generally I always, whenever he's cast in something, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's James Cromwell.
Also,
like
one note on
actor.
Tom Burke. I agree he did a great job as Orson Welles. It's funny because my first introduction to Tom Burke was on the BBC show The Musketeers back in like 2014. And that show's terrible, but it's like campy in a fun way.
That's always good.
And I think it kind of is responsible for launching the career of Peter Capaldi, because Capaldi played Cardinal Richelieu in the first season, and then after the first season, he was brought on to play Doctor Who. And his character was basically like just killed off in the show very suddenly. But Tom Burke plays Athos, and it's funny because like I said, the show's not that good. Most of the actors are not that good, but Tom Burke always stuck out as being really good in that show. And then I remembered seeing him in Only God Forgives, where he's just so creepy in like the 2 scenes that he's in. And I'm like, oh, this guy's gross, but he does a really good job, and it's a far cry from his role as Athos. So yeah, I mean, it's cool that he's kind of starting to make it now. Like he's got this little cameo as Orson Welles, and hopefully it'll lead to more things. It's just funny because Orson Welles in this movie is supposed to be 25. Tom Burke is 40 years old.
Wait, dude, he was also in season 4 of The Crown. I know exactly who he is too. He was in the Helena Bonham Carter centered episode. Yeah, he may be pushing 40, but in the show, I mean, he didn't look like 20-year-old Orson Welles, 24-year-old Orson Welles, but 24-year-old Orson Welles at that age looked old. And the makeup in Citizen Kane, you can love it, you can hate it. For pretty much everything except the like really end part, the makeup does a fantastic job of making Orson Welles actually look a lot older than he was. Considering he was 24 and he had to play him at like 60, 70, 80. Like the makeup did a pretty good job of masking that. Well, you know, to me, I mean, I think one of the reasons people still love Citizen Kane, or like all of the hoity-toity New Yorker type people love Citizen Kane, is because the film, a lot of the elements of it still hold up, even if it feels like a piece of media from a bygone era. There's a lot that still feels somewhat relevant, even if some of the sets look cheap. But anyway, we can digress on that point. Like I said, I find the behind the scenes of what happened with Citizen Kane, like the dynamic between Hearst and Mankiewicz, Mankiewicz, Marion Davies, and then Orson Welles and Hearst, and Orson Welles and Marion Davies, and the word rosebud that they very briefly and lightly allude to. Like every time I watch Citizen Kane, I always laugh every time they're like, Rosebud. What do you think Rosebud means? Why do you think, what's his obsession with Rosebud? Rosebud, Rosebud, Rosebud. And it's like, my God, like, no wonder Hearst was like super pissed. It's just like basically saying, oh yeah, you know, pussy, 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 like in the whole movie, like, ugh. Jesus Christ. But yeah, overall, like the thing about Mank is it feels like the perfect synthesis of a lot of other movies that have come out and have done a good job, but not done a perfect job. Like the Trumbo movie that came out, this feels the closest thing to that Trumbo movie, because Trumbo and Mank had similar political views insofar as like Mank was pretty far left and then Trumbo was just like all the way to the left. The fact that they both were kind of would talk about like unionization. Well, Mank apparently was against unionization, but like the things that had to go on between like the unions and distribution of wealth and all of that stuff, and the fact that Mank was fired from MGM and he was writing his big screenplay that was going to make him a star again, like that directly mirrors in Trumbo after he gets out of prison and he's like writing shitty movies that he can't put his name on, but he needs the money, and then he ends up writing, you know, like what's his name, Kirk Douglas, rest in peace, comes in and he's like, hey man, can you punch this up for me, because Stanley Kubrick is being crazy. Like that kind of mirrors the Mank in some regards. So you have echoes of Trumbo, you have echoes of Saving Mr. Banks, which I know you haven't seen, but basically the way that they work the narrative of Citizen Kane into the fabric of Mank's life story, that's very similar to Saving Mr. Banks, where P.L. Travers' life is linked very closely to Mary Poppins, insofar as they take lines and moments from Mary Poppins and put them in Australia at that time. So there's the relationship there. Shit, there was one more movie. Let me see. I wrote it down because I was like, I'm gonna forget these. And then nope, those were the only two. The other one was the RKO 281, and also the Battle for Citizen Kane, how it's related that way as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think that Mank does a better job of synthesizing those elements to create something, because like David Fincher, like I like John Lee Hancock as a director. David Fincher's just a better director. The guy, like the performance that Bryan Cranston gives in Trumbo is really good, but then there are really stupid things in the movie, like when he's explaining communism, he's like, you have a sandwich and the person next to you doesn't have a sandwich. Do you just eat your sandwich, or do you give half of your sandwich over to the person who doesn't have one? And his daughter's like, I give half of my sandwich. He's like, oh no, you're a communist. I'm like, that's not how that works.
I don't think that's quite accurate.
That's not how it works. So like you have a lot of stupid lines like that in the movie, as well as trying to sort of ape the visual style and the visual language there. And then as much as I liked RKO 281, it's, you know, and it is an HBO movie, so it's a little bit better than regular television movies. It still cuts too many corners and it cuts too many corners, and it doesn't pay attention as closely as someone like David Fincher does to all of the details he has in his movies. So, so that's why, like, it's weird watching Mank because it feels so derivative, but it feels derivative in like the best way possible. For me.
So, despite all the positive things I've said about this movie, while it is thematically interesting as a movie, it's not super interesting. Like, I didn't find the story particularly interesting. I thought the themes behind the story were interesting, but the story itself was like, it's okay. I thought a lot of the scenes themselves were fine, but didn't really... There was nothing, like, captivating about them. It's like, you know... What does Mayer say? He's like, what makes me cry? Emotion. Emotion comes from here, here, and here. And he points to his brain, his heart, and his junk. Like, in that crude sense, there wasn't a lot of, like, visceral appeal to the movie for me. Which I feel like a movie needs to have to be really, really good. So, and it's... You know, this, like a lot of the movies that you mentioned in connection with it, kind of suffers from that Highwayman problem, where it's like, Citizen Kane is a good movie. Here's a fictionalized behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Here, you know,
my week with Marilyn.
It's like My Week with Marilyn or whatever, where it's like, you know, Bonnie and Clyde were interesting people. Here's behind the scenes of like two people who had a brief encounter with them. And it's like, I just that as a
somewhere else
subject
with Highwaymen, but I get it. I get what you're saying now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that as a subject is just not interesting. So you have to have like, I don't know, some crazy shit happen to really make me, at least for me, to want to sink my teeth into something like that. So it's like, it's one of those movies where, you know, the visuals are great, the editing is great, a lot of the performances are really good. There's a lot of interesting subtext underneath the movie. But the movie itself is...
So, I guess my first question before I attempt any sort of rebuttal, if I have one, my first question is, would you have rather seen this from the point of view of Orson Welles?
I would have rather David Fincher made another movie about serial killers.
So basically, yeah, point of view of Orson Welles. Okay. Well, like, I think that the best version of this movie is, like, if Steven Soderbergh, who has a career of making movies about con men, made a behind-the-scenes movie about Citizen Kane from the point of view of Orson Welles, the biggest cinema con man of them all.
What's interesting is Steven Soderbergh seems uniquely preoccupied more than most other filmmakers with money. All his movies are about money and how money is, affects people, and how it creates, how a lot of, what am I trying to say? How a lot of, especially American institutions, structures, and systems that we, live within and just sort of accept and, in a sense, kind of take for granted, or revolve around money. Mm-hmm. So, in a movie that's about labor and therefore about money, I feel like that's perfect subject matter for someone like Soderbergh.
Yeah. David
Fincher, I love David Fincher's movies for the most part. Like, I think Zodiac is a masterpiece. Mindhunter is I think the single best TV show on Netflix.
Shot by the guy who shot Mank.
Yeah. So it's like, I'll always humor him, whatever he wants to make, except Benjamin Button. I will never see Benjamin Button.
I've tried watching it.
I will not. But yeah,
the CG was
like,
cool.
Like, I was sitting through this movie and thinking, it's like, wow, this is really well made. I just wish it was about murder or something. I wish it was about, like, kind of the lurid subject matter that we're used to from Fincher.
Yeah, I mean, that's always my issue with any movie project that is this long gestating. Anything like over a decade, I think it's like, be careful, because Uncut Gems, they were sitting on that for like 5 or 10 years, and when it came out, it was like, it's really good, but Good Time is probably better.
Oh, Good Time's way better.
Like, The Passion of the Christ came out, and Scorsese's like, I've been waiting years and years to do this. And like,
I mean, The Last Temptation of Christ?
Last Temptation of the Christ, yeah. That'd be funny if a Martin Scorsese version of the Passion of the Christ. It's like Harvey Keitel comes and was like, "Hey, let me wipe your face and get your impression on my cloth here." Robert De Niro stars as Jesus, but it's like 80-year-old Robert De Niro dragging the cross with the digital de-aging technology.
And it's just like, it's mostly just horrible, gory violence of Jesus being tortured.
Well, it's just like one long take where it's like, it's not that gory, but it feels gory because it's all in one take, like he does. And Al Pacino as Pontius Pilate, just like, I will not crucify the Jesus Christ. Yeah, like, okay, well.
And now I'm going to wash my hands of this.
But yeah, like a lot of these projects that are like really long, like take a long time to develop, and especially, Fincher's so close to the material because it's the last screenplay his dad wrote. Mm-hmm. So it's like even more like I have to be, respective of it, and I have to direct it, and you kind of get too much tunnel vision. That might have happened. What I will say is, I watched it late Friday night. I didn't even realize that it was 2 a.m. by the time it was over. And I wasn't sure how I felt about it. But then there's so much, like you said, I think the undercurrent of the themes resonates so well. The craft of the movie is so good that there were a lot of small moments in the movie that kept popping into my head and reminding me of it. And for the most part, Gary Oldman does a good job, I think. A lot of the supporting cast is the supporting cast.
Yeah.
But there's enough parallels I can draw in this movie to my life that I think even like 10 years down the road, if I rewatch it, I'll still be able to draw those parallels. And I kind of like that timeless aspect of it. So that's why I come at it sort of more from like a reverent point of view, because there's a lot of other movies that there's a lot of other people that could have directed this, and it would be literally just like Trumbo. You watch it for the performance, and then you toss it aside.
Well, I think for me, it's everything that went into the movie is really good. The movie itself is
a dud.
A witness, I guess. Like, it's worth seeing, but I won't remember it in 3 years. In 3 years, I'll be like, what the fuck was that movie with Gary Oldman that David Fincher did?
Yeah,
I mean, what's gonna happen?
I'm not gonna go on record and be like, because like I was like, is this really like a Shining Chrome? And like I agree with you, it doesn't resonate with me on that deep personal level. So I'm at a witness because, like, aside from The Social Network, it's probably his most approachable movie, and it's the performances are good. It's slick looking, you know, but it's not. But it's very like the first time you watch The Irishman and you're like, oh, so that's so that's what the movie was. It's a movie. This felt a lot like it was missing that extra something. But I think over time, I don't think it's going to be up there with his greats. It'll probably be like, you know, like Gone Girl. You know, when people think of David Fincher movies, they think of Fight Club, they think of Seven, they think of The Social Network, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I don't know how many people will think about that, but like Gone Girl is like, oh yeah, that was David Fincher did make that movie. I think people will be like, oh yeah, David Fincher made Mank. Yeah, I forgot about that. Let me give it a watch.
There are really good movies out there that I also just forget about. Like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I don't really think about it ever.
Yeah.
This, yeah, it's good. It's worth a watch.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, your mileage will vary. But, you know, it's very much, this is David Fincher trying to get his Oscar. The only way I'm going to do it is if I make it a movie about Hollywood.
Shoot it in black and white. Get Gary Oldman to just do his Gary Oldman thing.
Yeah.
That he does.
Yep. I feel like as the years have gone, Gary Oldman's become like, he's got the Pacino thing, whereas like in the 70s and early 80s, Pacino was like, all right, I'm an actor. I've got to act. I've got to choose my moments to go full Pacino. And then like after Scent of a Woman, he was just like, I'm Al Pacino. Now like, I feel like every role that Gary Oldman is in, he's just like I guess it's after Darkest Hour. Now he's just like, I've got to be super over the top. It's like,
oh yeah, no, he's definitely got some Darkest Hour vibes going on here, where it's like his upper lip is threatening to consume his entire face.
Like
where he talks like this with his chin tucked underneath his
chin
up. Like he does this thing. He did this in Darkest Hour because I think that Winston Churchill sort of actually spoke like this, where he doesn't close his mouth all the way when he's doing like S's and T's and stuff, and then he tucks his jaw underneath the upper part of his mouth, so it creates this sort of lisping way of speaking, and it's weird. But his performance as Mankiewicz kind of has that same posture to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was very Bryan Cranston and Trumbo-y, like to the point where, to me, they're pretty much the exact same character, because they both have these really long monologues that are filled with wit and like empty insight, and like they're both, you know, they both wear glasses and have really bad receding hairlines and drink a lot. It's like they're the same person.
Oh, that's too bad. I mean, Trumbo, the film, sounded so like poisonously uninteresting that I have never been tempted to see it, and I'm sad to hear that it's like this.
I will say they always, whenever it comes to Trumbo, they said you're better off watching the documentary about Dalton Trumbo. With this, I think this works as a perfect companion piece to The Battle for Citizen Kane, as well as standing alone as its own movie. Because like one of the things that the behind the scenes of Citizen Kane was obsessed with is, you know, it's like Mankiewicz. I want to call him Minkiewicz because of Sienkiewicz. Mankiewicz, Herb, and Orson. They're fighting with William Randolph. Herm. Gary Oldman and Orson Welles. Gary Oldman and Liev Schreiber are fighting against James Cromwell / Charles Dance, and that's the main focus. But near the end of the production, the focus started shifting towards Mankiewicz and Wells fighting, and how
in one scene
but that's just it. It's like it takes up. It's so concentrated and so focused for a lot of this that a lot of the conflict between the two comes right during the filming, like running up to right towards the release where Mankiewicz
it's really
wants
abrupt.
Credit. Yeah, but that's also where you start getting things like Orson Welles as Charles Foster Kane. It actually comes through a lot that Orson Welles is similar to Charles Foster Kane more so than Charles Foster Kane is similar to William Randolph Hearst. Because even though the two had the two lives parallel each other, there was a certain aggression that Welles brought. Like at the end, it kind of perfectly encapsulates it when he like grabs the giant bottle or the giant chest and like throws it and starts making a tantrum. And Gary Oldman turns and is like, I guess I have one more scene to put into my script. And it's like, that's the scene. And at the end of shooting that scene, Welles is like, I've never felt closer to this character than in that moment when I'm just throwing a hissy fit and destroying everything. And it's like...
So he was a rageaholic as well as an alcoholic.
Was Orson Welles an alcoholic? I mean, it would make sense, but...
Oh, yeah. Have you ever seen that wine commercial he did where he's very clearly just wasted? It's famous. It's like a year or two before he died. We're talking like F is for fake Orson Welles.
Yeah.
He's doing an
that was
ad
the other
for
thing.
He's doing an ad for wine. And like he's just like he's like cross-eyed. He's so drunk. He's just like, yes, such and such a brand wine is the best wine.
Well, like,
and it's like it's a famous advertisement. They made fun of it in a couple different shows via Maurice LaMarche usually.
Orson Welles reminds me a lot of Marlon Brando. And again, just quickly to touch on the whole like Orson Welles and F for fake. Like William Randolph Hearst, when he died, I believe he wasn't like fat. He was still pretty skinny because he had, a slimmer build, and he was obsessed with collecting things, not necessarily eating all the time like Orson Welles was. So Orson Welles at the end of his life looks just like is bigger than Charles Foster Kane is at the end of his life. And it's like, I'm wondering if that was like Mankiewicz putting in like, Charles Foster Kane got fat because Orson Welles can't stop shoving his fucking face with food. Like, you're still eating, I'm still hungry. Like, oof. Those are going to come back to haunt you in 30, 40 years.
Well, they're both obsessed with collecting things. It's just
Yep.
Orson Welles liked to collect them in his stomach.
Well, and again, it reminded me of Marlon Brando because, like, Orson Welles, love him or hate him, he was a good actor and he had an iconic voice. Yep. Marlon Brando has an iconic voice, and by the time they died, they both looked like Jabba the Hutt. So and like they were both fantastic talents, but they were also both really difficult to work with. So like I always, whenever I think of Orson Welles, it's eerie how similar acting wise he was to Marlon Brando. Now, of course, Orson Welles had like he had like this huge marketing machine behind him before he was even like when he was born.
Yeah,
like, I'm the Wonderkind and I'm gonna revolutionize.
Well, he was also this writer, producer, director, editor. He did all these other things. Brando just acted. Also, their acting styles were very different.
Yes, they were. Yeah.
Orson Welles is more of that old-fashioned, just like Laurence Olivier, like just shout lines dramatically with like your awesome voice, and then Brando is like, I'm going to vanish completely into this character.
Yep. When you get Orson Welles in a role, you're watching Orson Welles. But like Orson Welles, as if he was this person, like in The Chimes at Midnight. It's like, oh, fat Orson Welles playing Falstaff? Oh yeah, that makes sense. Or in what is it? That one Touch of Evil where fat Orson Welles got even fatter. It's like, oh, and so.
Oh, so fun fact about Mank, because it's David Fincher and he likes to do a billion takes of everything. The big climactic scene where Gary Oldman monologues basically about Citizen Kane at the dinner party they did over 100 takes of that scene. And it's like apparently one of Amanda Seyfried's scenes
Siegfried.
took over
Amanda
200
and Roy.
takes and a week worth of time to shoot.
And yet the movie was only like $30 million to make.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, you also, like, given that David Fincher started his career as a special effects technician at ILM, and incorporates a lot of CGI, very, like, under-the-radar CGI into his movies. I wonder how much CGI is in this movie. Because that's always the big question. It's like, how much CGI is in a David Fincher movie? Because you're probably not going to notice right away.
No.
I mean, it's all digital blood, typically, in his stuff. Which is mind-boggling. Like watching Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, and you're like, all this blood is digital. That just broke my brain.
It was like having had to do some rotoscoping, motion tracking, things like that. Like, it just makes me sad to see that they had to do it like that. It's just like, oh my God. By the way, when this movie was literally shot in black and white, it was shot on red monstrochrome 8K cameras. No color version of this movie exists. So when he said he wanted to shoot it in black and white, motherfucker, he shot it in black and white. None of this post-editing, color correcting to make it desaturated black and white. Like, that's crazy. It's insane.
And it was shot on digital.
It was
Which
shot
is like,
yeah.
It's funny because every time someone tries to imitate an old movie look, you know, they're like, oh, we're going to shoot it on film. And then David Fincher's like, nah, just shoot it on digital and put a fucking filter on it. I don't care.
Well, and they had the real change moments too, because like every now and then you'll just see like a black dot appear in the upper right hand corner of the screen. It's like,
I know, which is
David
hilarious
Fincher,
because it doesn't even appear at regular intervals. It just appears randomly.
It's great.
Like it appears 3 times in the span of 15 minutes, and it's like I don't think that's how the real change works.
That's just David Fincher fucking with you at that point, which is another reason I love that's another reason I love his films. Like, if you haven't seen it yet, here's another good documentary, Side by Side, narrated by Keanu Reeves. They talk to a bunch of people about shooting digitally versus shooting on film, and like, it's tough because, you know, film is the obvious underdog because all of the studios would rather shoot digitally. They project digitally, you edit digitally. You might as well shoot it digitally because it produces a similar look to film, but you still have a handful, hopefully and growing, of holdouts who want to do film, but film's so expensive. David Fincher jumped on digital as soon as he could because he's like, you know what I fucking hate? I hate sitting around and waiting for them to change the film canister. They immediately cut to Christopher Nolan, who's like, oh, I love it when they change the film reel because, you know, it's like a 15-minute process. Everyone gets to have a quick break from the film and then, you know, relax a little bit and you get right back onto it.
Yeah, that's because Fincher's like, I have you know 2,000 more takes of Jesse Eisenberg looking to the left to do today, so we need to just keep this going.
I would like there's a documentary on Blade Runner where it's just like 37 takes of someone putting a plate of noodles in front of the camera that doesn't even make it into the final film, and like people were like, what the fuck is Ridley Scott doing? He's just fucking with us. Like, I want to know how many takes David Fincher does of insert shots. Like, I get why he does it. He said that the reason he does multiple takes is because it's a couple of reasons, but like one of them is like, I want to make sure I get the perfect take because I want this stuff to outlive me. I want it to be perfect. And it's like, yeah, I get it. And then from an acting point of view, I mean, you've been in front of the camera a little bit. The first couple takes are always really good, and then the next couple takes are always really lazy, and you suddenly get exhausted with it. You get really bored with it, and then you like hit this transcendent point where you're like, oh, I have a new approach to it, and that's usually what they end up going with.
Yeah, I mean, I never made anyone do 100 takes of anything, but
I never want to.
When I was making, you know, when we were making movies back in school, I remember you told me something like that about David Fincher, and that I basically would try to push actors through the boredom zone to the other side, and just do enough takes where once they hit the other side, they do something really interesting, and usually that's the perfect take.
Yep. Yep. That's what happens in theater. That's like, in theater, you have to run through the show so many times that you get bored of the material. And then at a certain point, because this is like when I was working at Disney World, I had to do something where I said the same thing over and over. And you get bored. I could do it I could like think about what I was doing the rest of the day and still say the right words, perfect cadence, exactly the same. And then when you realize you've gotten bored with it, you have two options. You can either continue to do it the boring way, or you can be like, is there something else that I can do for it? And that's when you get genuine inspiration. That's why but it usually happens, like Ridley Scott prefers like the early takes. He only does like 1 or 2 takes. I think Spielberg's the same way. I have to assume Nolan's similar to that. But there's a reason that a lot of Fincher's movies are super memorable. A lot of their performances are super memorable, and like the only good Justin Timberlake performance in a movie is in The Social Network. Like there's a reason for that. So I don't like doing it. I think it's mean, but hey, it works for Fincher. And like, again, Fincher made The Social Network and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. They came out the following year. So even if you're doing like this crazy thing, you can still get it done. There's no reason that you can't get it done.
Like I was reading up on the production of the movie, and it was in production for 3 months, which isn't terrible.
No, that's yeah. Well,
which but 3 months is a little. It's longer than some movies for sure. But if you take into account the fact that he's doing a bajillion takes of every single shot of every single scene, that's really short. Considering how much how much work on set everyone has to put in. It's one of his movies.
I don't know if this is true, but I heard somewhere that if you're sitting around looking at your camera on David Fincher's set, he will walk up to you and say, "Hey, what are you doing?" And if you can't tell him what you're doing or why you're working or why you're sitting out, he just fires you on the spot, because he doesn't want he trims all of the fat out of the budget. If you're working on his set, you're working on his set, which is possibly why it can lead to faster turnarounds. He also doesn't allow breaks between setups. Like a lot of his shots in the movie, there's not a lot of moving camera work, probably because it's just quickly churn out next take. Let's get to it, guys. We got to get it done. We only have 3 months to shoot this.
Interesting, because I always tended towards the opposite approach. Like, I would try to do as many scenes as I could in a single take, just to avoid having to do a bunch of camera setups. Because I always felt the setups took too much time, and it's like, okay, we have an hour, so let's just try and get as much as we can at once, and move between angles by moving the camera.
By camera movement. Yeah, that's what I like about Spielberg's movies, is like, okay, how can we shoot this entire scene in one take? And then if we can't, okay, well, what's the other setup we need? And I like that way, but
and it's like, it's not to be pretentious or anything. It's just like, I only have so much time. Like, it takes a while to, move the camera, set the focus. Maybe we have to adjust it's a lot of work.
Yep.
To set up the camera one time, let alone 2 times or 3 or 4 or 12.
Yeah, there's a joke with the Just Shoot It podcast. They're like, yeah, the DP will come up to you and say, hey, I have this idea for a cool shot. And they're like, okay, how long is it going to take to set up? And they're like, oh, it'll only take 15 minutes. And he's like, nope, we're not going to do it, because that's not, it's going to take longer than 15 minutes to set up. And unless the shot is like mind-blowing, it's just not worth it. And I think a lot of, like, especially like early films or student films, you don't realize how long it takes between setups, and you really have to prioritize, like, what do I want to shoot? What do I need to get?
Yeah.
So, as 2 guys who haven't made a film in a fucking year and a half.
I mean, it's been longer for me. I haven't made a movie in 3 years at this point.
Well, that's.
I mean, I've helped on sets in the intervening period.
Okay,
but
that's
actually
good.
I haven't made anything myself in like 3 years, which is really depressing now that I say it out loud.
One thing about like Fincher's movies is they remind me why I love filmmaking. Like, and just listening to his behind the scenes, even if it is a bunch of people like bitching and moaning about how he does 1,000 takes and 100 takes, it's like, you know what? But like, where is he making compromises so he's allowed to do that? And there are places where he is, and that's, you know, that's filmmaking for you. It's just, you have to find where you can make compromises to fit your style. And luckily for Fincher, he learned on doing music videos and commercials, like what works, what doesn't. So, you have anything else to add, or should we start wrapping it up?
I think we can wrap it up. I mean, yeah, Mank is a witness.
Mank is a witness.
It'll probably be up for some awards because, of course, it is.
What else is there?
You know, I was trying to make a list of every 2020 movie I've seen, because it's December 6th. We're getting close to the end of the year, which means we'll have to do like a year in review, top 10 sort of deal.
Oh, fuck.
Mank is the 8th movie from 2020 that I've seen. So if I had to review the year right now, not only would my top 10 only have 8 movies on it, one of those 8 movies would be The Old Guard. Which I hate. And another one of those movies would be Harley Quinn, which is fine, but it's Harley Quinn.
Was that in 2020? Was that the beginning of the year's Birds of Prey? Holy shit.
Birds of Prey came out before, the plague happened.
Wow.
So
Jesus Christ. I mean, I saw The
I will have to
Gentleman, so
dedicate
luckily
the
I
rest
can
of this-
easily slide that in if I have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rest of this month I'm going to have to just watch as many movies that came out this year as possible, in the hopes that I can at least like knock Harley Quinn and everything below it off the top 10.
We might have to do a top 5. I mean, on the bright side, that means that some movies that we reviewed on this show, I'm thinking of Ending Things, for example.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the list, and other years might not have been. But yeah,
It's true.
It's just really depressing in general.
It's very depressing. This
I haven't
year
seen Invisible
has been
Man.
Depressing.
And
I've
I feel
not
like
seen it either. I think
I feel
that
like
might.
Invisible Man will be pushed there, like
That could
The
take
Five
the
Bloods,
cake.
maybe. Oh God, I'm looking at some of these here from this person has a list 2020 movies, and like I'm like Jingle Jangle, ugh, Selfie. I don't know, Selfie. What the fuck is that? Eurovision came out this. Sonic the Hedgehog came out this year. Wow.
Yeah.
The first 2 months were filled with a bunch of movies that I saw, and then it just kind of, after everything died, it's just like, woof.
Yeah, against my better judgment, I might just have to talk about Tenet again.
Well, with Warner Brothers moving all of their releases to HBO Max, I mean, for the sake of the podcast and the website, we just might have to get a subscription so that we can watch the Snyder moments all over again.
And if you like what we do, we'll probably have a Patreon, so you can subsidize my fucking HBO Max subscription.
The work account HBO Max subscription. How much is HBO Max?
It's like $15, man.
$15, little man. Put that shit in my hand. HBO Max in theaters on HBO Max. I mean, we could. Well, no, never mind. You'd have to get it. Yeah, $15. Cancel anytime. Do they have a year deal? Oh, it's so depressing, dude. Same day premieres. Like, just looking at some of these, it just makes me sad. Specifically, the Suicide Squad, Godzilla vs. Kong, and Wonder Woman 1984. Wonder Woman 1984 is the one that's the most crushing to me. Like, that was going to make $1 billion. But as you know, I'm a fan of the first.
Wait,
Wonder
crushing
Woman.
to you in what way?
That they're releasing it in December instead of just pushing it for another year.
Like, but why is it crushing?
I don't know, because I liked the first one, and like the fact that they're just kind of like they're gonna vomit it in a couple of theaters around the country and then putting it on to make it a made-for-TV movie is just like, I don't know.
It's a
I felt
superhero movie, man. Who cares?
Yeah, but I felt like it was gonna. This was gonna be the one. Well, plus, like I said, I still like superhero movies for the most part. I blame it on my stunted emotional age. But like it just.
I mean, I still rewatch the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, but I don't. I don't particularly love superhero movies in general. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of good ones, but I'm not like chomping at the bit for Wonder Woman 1984 or anything.
That's the only one.
Really.
I mean, the Suicide Squad. I'm more interested in just like okay, I wonder if this thing came together. I like Idris Elba. I like Idris Elba playing basically Deadshot. I'd be interested in watching this, but like a lot of them, there's a lot of smaller ones that I'm like, God, it would have been fun to see it in theater instead of just on my TV.
I mean, I would, I'm sad that we didn't get to have Cary Fukunaga's James Bond movie this year, but
yeah, that's the other. Well, but see, even being able to look forward to it for another 6 months, like I'm sad that we didn't get it this year, but I'm even more excited to see it. I wish they would go in and retouch things that they wanted to change, but I respect Fukunaga being like, nope, the movie is done. It's just done. I could obsess over it. I could change things, but I don't want that. And I'm like, I get it. I understand that. But
I have a huge amount of respect for Fukunaga because he makes great stuff and he always just sticks to his guns.
God, I'm so excited for No Time to Die. So excited. I cannot wait.
That's right. No Time to Die. I always try to think like, what's the name of that movie? Like Die Again, Tomorrow's Yesterday.
I'll say this. The other one that I'm really sad that, well, I guess it's not that bad that it's being released for HBO Max is Judah and the Black Messiah. I think that would have been like something really interesting to talk about on the podcast, and we still can, but it would have been cool to see that in theaters. I don't think it would have made any money, but it would have been cool to see it in theaters.
This is, okay. I didn't even know what this was, but
yeah,
this is interesting.
I had a feeling you didn't because like, I was gonna wait for it. But yeah, it's got a bunch of actors that we like in it.
Oh yeah, it's got Daniel Kaluuya, nice.
Yep.
It's got Martin Sheen, nice. It's got Lakeith Stanfield. Oh, this
yep.
It's got Jesse Plemons. Ooh.
Well, he's literally just like he's like the dollop of vanilla ice cream that you have to put on everything, or he's like the mayonnaise that ruins the sandwich. It's like, all right, that's fine.
He's the obligatory whipped cream that they put on every dessert, even though like the dessert doesn't need whipped cream on it.
I would like my cafe mocha. How much whipped cream would you like? Why is it half the cup? It's like, whatever. Jesse Plemons has a career and he's married to Kirsten Dunst, so whatever.
So this movie is directed by someone whose name is Shaka King. So, if this isn't like ultra in your face, like mega political, I'm gonna be disappointed.
Produced by Spike Lee. No, not really. But
like if this doesn't make Spike Lee look like a Republican, I'm going to be disappointed. Like you can't call yourself Shaka King and not make that type of movie.
So okay, here we go. Here's a question for you. Do you think this is going to let's see, so do you think this is going to take the stance of, because I think Lakeith Stanfield plays a cop who's trying to infiltrate the Black Panther, or I guess he's an informant that's trying to infiltrate the Black Panthers. Do you think this is going to take the stance of the Black Panther organization is good and the FBI crushed it, or do you think it's going to take the stance of we're going to pretend like the Black Panther organization is good, show that there are corrupt people in it, and therefore FBI was necessary to take it down?
I think the angle is going to be...
I know which one you're hoping it is, but which one do you think they're going to take?
Dude, I am hoping this is like anti-establishment to the max. Not like...
Martin Sheen as J. Edgar Hoover. Oh my God, can we just re-edit all of J. Edgar with Martin Sheen?
Oh, that would be great. I mean, like, look, the Black Panthers, a very problematic group of people. They did a lot of horrible shit. But the FBI is so much worse. That said, I enjoy like scathing political hot takes, even ones that I don't agree with, like as long as they're really ballsy. Which is why I'm hoping this movie is super extremist, because I want this movie to say something crazy. Like I want someone to have the guts to say something crazy.
Like what? Or can you even think of something?
Well, so here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for, like, just a complete lionization of the Black Panthers. The FBI is evil and horrible.
That's what I thought you would... Yeah, that's what I thought you would come down on it.
Because, like, okay, this is kind of... I am being a little racist when I say this, but, like, with a name like Shaka King, I'm hoping that it's, like... You know, William O'Neill infiltrates the Black Panther Party out of just kind of self-interest. He's not politically interested in what's going on. He's just trying to save his own skin. And then ends up, like, it's Judas and the Black Messiah. Like, at the end of the... Like, he starts to fall in with the Black Panthers. He becomes attracted to their ideology. He believes Fred Hampton is the Black Messiah. You know, he's going to save black folks and from their... the lousy state of things in 1960s America. Mm-hmm. But because he is a flawed person, he betrays Fred Hampton against his better judgment, you know, because Judas always felt guilty about betraying Jesus. Like it was like a moment of weakness, you know, but he loved Jesus. And, I think it's going to be that kind of a thing, where like the FBI is like they're the Romans, they're horrible and evil. William O'Neill is like Judas, he wants to do the right thing, but he's a flawed guy, so he messes up and ends up, you know, a lot of people end up getting hurt. And then they're probably just going to portray Fred Hampton as Jesus Christ incarnate, which would piss so many people off and would make me laugh. So that's what I'm hoping for.
I don't know if you can portray Daniel. I don't know if Daniel Kaluuya can portray a character that is just all good at this point. Like, I think anytime you see him in a movie, he has, like, I always think of Widows and Black Panther, Daniel Kaluuya, even though, like, I think most people are much more familiar with him in regards to... like Get Out, he's like, oh, the good guy, but, you know. Yeah.
Well, Daniel Kaluuya, I think, has an inherently menacing quality to him that, like, Lakeith Stanfield doesn't.
Yeah.
Lakeith Stanfield comes across as, like, more of just, like, a normal guy. Whereas Daniel Kaluuya can very easily portray someone who's threatening, even if it's very subtle.
Yep, that's what made him. That's one of the things that made him great about in Widows is like that one scene where the camera's just going around them over and over. It's like, you know, it's like, my God, you captured all of the energy that you possibly could about, you know, this character in one scene. Just like the charm and the terror of him, in one easy scene.
Well, it's like, and you know, Daniel Kaluuya can also play like kind of a doe-eyed, innocent person as well, like he did in Get Out. But he does that Widow's character so well.
Yeah, he does. Well, if it came out this year, it would have been awesome, but thanks, COVID.
Oh, well.
Oh, man. If they want to find us, where can they find us?
Well, if you're offended by any of the opinions expressed in this podcast, you can always...
keep listening,
but keep listening anyway. We encourage you to keep listening on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and YouTube.
Yes.
You can also email us at underthewheelspodcast@gmail.com. Our website is underthewheels.com. It's got plenty of like articles and other stuff that we don't really get to touch on. It's got some more detailed reviews of Andrei Rublev and Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai, which we mentioned at the beginning of this episode. And, like us on Facebook. And, yeah, did I miss anything? Music by Mike, as always.
Music by Mike, yep. I don't think so. No, I think that's it. I think we've covered everything, like a bad Citizen Kane parody going backwards and forwards in time, confusing everyone. I don't know. Trying to find a way to wrap it up.
Yeah, you've just been under the wheels, guys.
Oh.
And gals.
Yep, you have just been under the wheels. I'm Matthew.
I'm Gabe.
Have a great rest of your day.
This fucking year. I'm looking through the cast of Mank right now, and I'm wondering, like, is it just illegal now to cast Americans in movies? Are we really that gauche these days? Because it's like you got fucking Lily Collins.
Well, she's kind of American.
You got Ben Kingsley's son. You have Tuppence Middleton, which is the most British name. I have no idea who that is, but that is the most British name I've ever heard. Tom Burke is Orson Welles. Good old Tom Burke, the creepy pedophile brother in Only God Forgives.
Oh, okay, that's where. Yeah,
he was also in The Musketeers. If you ever watched that show, it's not good, but it is fun.
Anything's better than.
Yeah.
See, Lily Collins is like, she checks both boxes. She's English American, because I've heard her American accent and it was really good, and then in this, when I heard her British accent, I was like, I don't know about that.
I mean, at least the movie has cowboy in it from Full Metal Jacket.
It does?
Yeah. Arliss Howard. He's Louis B. Mayer.
God damn, he's old.
Yeah. He's also in Jurassic Park 2. The surprisingly good, I would say, sequel to Jurassic Park.
Sure. He was in Moneyball. What the fuck?
Who was he in Moneyball?
He was John Henry in Moneyball.
That's right. He was John Henry in Moneyball. Which is weird, because I just saw only the John Henry scene from Moneyball, like 2 weeks ago.
Like so the whole time I thought he was Bob Balaban. Balaban? Balbalan? I thought he was that guy, because I was like, he looks kind of like he like, I feel like I've seen him in. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had to look him up, but yeah, I know who he is. Seeing his pictures, like, oh, it's that guy.
Finished.